The fluorescent lights of Murphy's Corner store buzzed overhead as I reached for my usual spot at the lottery machine. Tuesday, 3:47 p.m., same time I'd been coming here for 20 years. The young cashier, barely older than my granddaughter, didn't even look up from her phone as I fed my crumpled $5 bill into the machine. "The usual, Mrs. Thompson," she mumbled, not really asking. I nodded, though she wasn't watching. 5 quick-pick tickets, plus one special one. Always the special one. The numbers I'd been playing since Jessica was born. Her birthday, my wedding anniversary, the day my late husband David first held her tiny hand in the hospital. 03/17, 1985, 22, 11:45. I'd played these numbers every single week for 38 years, through good times and lean times, through David's cancer and the endless medical bills, through Jessica's college tuition that I paid working double shifts at the diner and cleaning offices at night. My arthritic fingers fumbled with the machine's buttons. Each ticket felt heavier than it should, but I'd learned to carry heavy things. I'd been carrying heavy things since Jessica's father walked out when she was 3, leaving nothing but empty beer bottles and a note that said he wasn't ready for this kind of responsibility. The machine whirred and spit out my tickets. I folded them carefully into my worn leather wallet, the same wallet David gave me for our 10th anniversary, back when we thought we had forever. The leather was cracked now, like my hands, like the dreams I'd tucked away so Jessica could chase hers instead. Walking back to Jessica's house felt different today, though I couldn't say why. Maybe it was the way Mrs. Chen from next door waved at me through her kitchen window, or maybe it was the weight of those tickets in my purse. I'd lived in that small back room for 5 years now, ever since David passed and Jessica insisted I sell the house. "It's too big for you, Mom," she'd said, counting the inheritance money with eager fingers. And honestly, I could use some help with little Emma while I get my real estate license. Help? That's what she called it when I woke up at 5 a.m. to make Emma's lunch, when I walked her to school because Jessica had client meetings, when I folded tiny clothes and read bedtime stories and kissed scraped knees. Help. I pushed open the front door of what used to feel like home. The living room was pristine. White leather furniture that Emma wasn't allowed to touch. Glass coffee tables that reflected Jessica's success like mirrors. Real estate had been good to her. Very good. The commissions from selling McMansions to tech executives had bought this house. The BMW in the driveway. The designer handbags that cost more than I used to make in a month. "Grandma Maggie!" Emma's voice echoed from the kitchen, followed by the sound of running feet. 8 years old in pure sunshine, she crashed into my legs with the force of unconditional love. "How was school, sweetheart?" I asked, smoothing her wild curls, so much like Jessica's had been at that age, before life taught her to straighten them, to smooth all the wild parts of herself into something more acceptable. "We learned about butterflies. Did you know they taste with their feet?" I did not know that. I smiled, genuinely delighted. This was why I stayed, not for the cramped room or the careful politeness, but for moments like these, for the chance to see the world through Emma's eyes, bright and curious and unmarked by disappointment. "Where's your mom?" I asked, though I could hear Jessica's voice drifting from her home office, animated, confident, closing another deal. "On the phone with someone about money," Emma shrugged. "She's been really excited about something all day. She keeps saying she has big news." Jessica's voice grew louder as she finished her call. I heard her heels clicking against the hardwood floor, getting closer. She appeared in the kitchen doorway, her phone still in her hand, her face flushed with an excitement I hadn't seen since Emma was born. "Mom, you'll never believe what just happened." She was practically vibrating with energy. "I won. I actually won." "Won what, honey?" She held up her phone, showing me some kind of lottery app. The jackpot, $10 million. Can you believe it? $10 million! The world tilted slightly. I gripped the kitchen counter to steady myself. That's wonderful, Jessica. Really wonderful. I bought the ticket on a whim yesterday, used the app for the first time. Some random numbers, I don't even remember what they were. She was pacing now, her words tumbling over each other. I have to go to the lottery office tomorrow to claim it. They said after taxes it'll be about $6 million. $6 million, Mom! Emma was jumping up and down, not understanding the full significance, but caught up in her mother's joy. Does this mean we're rich, Mommy? We're already rich, baby girl. Now we're really rich. I forced a smile. I'm so happy for you, sweetheart. You deserve good things. And I meant it. Despite everything, despite the careful distance she'd maintained since David's funeral, despite the way she'd slowly made me feel like a guest in her home rather than family, I wanted good things for my daughter. I'd worked 3 jobs so she could go to college, so she wouldn't have to clean other people's houses or serve coffee to men who looked through her, like she was invisible. She'd built something real, something lasting. But later that night, lying in my narrow bed in the back room, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was shifting. The walls felt closer somehow, the air thinner. I pulled my lottery tickets from my wallet and spread them on the small nightstand David had made for me 40 years ago. 5 quick picks and my special numbers. 03, Pontar, 17, 1-1985, 22 to 11:45. I'd never expected to win anything significant. The tickets were more like a prayer than a real hope, a weekly ritual that connected me to possibility, to the idea that maybe, just maybe, the universe might surprise me. But now, with Jessica's win hanging in the air like electricity before a storm, my own tickets felt different, heavier. I tucked them away and tried to sleep, but Jessica's words kept echoing in my mind. Random numbers. I don't even remember what they were. Random. The next morning brought changes I should have seen coming. Jessica was up before dawn, her laptop open at the kitchen table, surrounded by legal documents and printouts about lottery winnings and tax implications. She'd already called her boss to request time off, already started making lists of what she wanted to buy first. A bigger house, she was saying into her phone as I made coffee. Something in Westchester, maybe, with a pool for Emma and enough space for entertaining. I poured coffee into my usual mug, a chipped ceramic one Emma had made in art class, and sat quietly at the breakfast bar. The morning routine felt fragile, like we were all moving through glass. Emma bounded downstairs in her school uniform, backpack bouncing against her shoulders. "Grandma Maggie, will you still walk me to school?" "Of course, sweetheart." Jessica looked up from her papers. "Actually, Mom, I need you to stay here today. I have to go to the lottery office and there might be reporters or, I don't know, people wanting to talk. I need someone to handle the house." "Of course," I said again, "whatever you need." But something in Jessica's tone made me look at her more carefully. She was avoiding my eyes, her jaw set in a way that reminded me of David, when he'd made a decision he knew I wouldn't like. After Emma left for school and Jessica drove away in her BMW, the house felt enormous and empty. I cleaned, not because it needed cleaning, but because my hands needed something to do. I dusted furniture that had no dust, organized drawers that were already organized, anything to quiet the unease growing in my chest. The call came around noon, Jessica breathless with excitement. "Mom, you won't believe what they told me at the lottery office. The payout is actually going to be bigger than they first calculated, and the media wants to interview me. Channel 7 is coming to the house this afternoon." "That's wonderful, honey. Listen, I need you to make yourself scarce when they get here. This is my moment, you know? I don't want any confusion about whose win this is." The words hit me like a physical blow. Confusion? You know what I mean. They'll want to focus on me, on my story. Single mom, built a successful career, now this amazing windfall. It's a clean narrative. A clean narrative. One that apparently didn't include the woman who raised her, who worked herself to the bone so Jessica could have opportunities I never dreamed of. "I understand," I said, though I didn't. Not really. But I did what she asked. When the news crew arrived, I retreated to my room and listened through the thin walls as Jessica told her story. How she'd worked so hard to build her real estate career. How she was determined to give her daughter the best life possible. How this win would change everything for them. them. The interview felt like it lasted hours, though it was probably only 30 minutes. When I finally emerged, Jessica was glowing, riding high on the attention and the validation. "They said it might air tonight," she said, not seeming to notice that I'd been hiding in my room like a shameful secret. "Emma will be so excited to see Mommy on TV." That evening, we all gathered around the television. Emma curled up on the couch, Jessica beside her, both of them staring at the screen with anticipation. I sat in the chair David used to favor, the one that creaked when you shifted your weight. And there was my daughter, beautiful and poised, talking about her incredible luck and her bright future. The interviewer asked about her family, and Jessica mentioned Emma, of course. "My daughter is everything to me," she said. "This win means I can give her the world." No mention of me, not even a passing reference to the woman who'd given Jessica her world, piece by careful piece, year after year. I went to bed early that night, claiming a headache that wasn't entirely a lie. My head did hurt, but it was nothing compared to the ache in my chest, the growing certainty that something fundamental had shifted in the earthquake of Jessica's good fortune. Over the next week, the changes came faster. Jessica hired a financial advisor, a lawyer, an accountant. She looked at houses online, expensive houses with gates and guest wings and pools the size of my old apartment. She talked constantly about her plans, her future, her new life. The word "my" appeared in every sentence. My money, my win, my future. I tried to be supportive. I really did. When she showed me photos of a mansion in Westchester with 7 bedrooms and a 3-car garage, I made appropriate noises of appreciation. When she talked about quitting her job to travel with Emma to show her daughter the world, I smiled and nodded. But with each passing day, I felt myself shrinking. The back room seemed to get smaller, my presence in the house more tentative. Jessica was making new friends. Other lottery winners she'd connected with online, wealthy neighbors she'd started socializing with. She joined an exclusive country club, bought expensive clothes, started talking about Emma attending private school. "It's all about giving her opportunities," Jessica explained when I questioned the wisdom of pulling Emma out of her current school mid-year. "Money changes everything, Mom. Emma needs to be around the right kind of people now. The right kind of people." I wondered if that included her grandmother, who'd never had money to offer, only love and presence and endless, unglamorous devotion. 2 weeks after the win, Jessica sat me down at the kitchen table. She'd arranged the conversation carefully. Emma was at school, the house was quiet, and Jessica had her serious face on, the one she wore when she was about to deliver news she'd already decided was final. "Mom, we need to talk about the future." My heart started beating faster. Okay, this win changes everything for us. For Emma and me, we're going to be moving, probably within the next few months, somewhere bigger, better, somewhere that reflects our new circumstances. I waited, though I thought I knew where this was heading. The thing is, the new house, it's going to be our fresh start, Emma's and mine. And I think it would be best if you found your own place. The words landed like stones in still water, creating ripples of shock that spread through my entire body. My own place? You're 68, Mom. You're still young enough to enjoy your independence. And with this money, I can help you find something nice. A little apartment, maybe one of those senior communities with activities and people your own age. People my own age. As if Emma wasn't my family, as if the last 5 years of daily caregiving and bedtime stories and homework help had been nothing more than a temporary arrangement. "Jessica, I don't understand. I thought we were family." Her face hardened slightly. "We are family. But this is my chance to give Emma the life she deserves. The life I should have been able to give her from the beginning if I hadn't had to support." She didn't finish the sentence, but she didn't need to, if she hadn't had to support me. "I never asked you to support me," I said quietly. I've paid you rent every month since I moved in. I've taken care of Emma while you built your career. I've never asked you for anything. And I appreciate that, I really do. But this is different now. Emma needs to understand what it means to be successful, to have achieved something. I don't want her thinking that depending on others is normal. Living with me. That's what she couldn't say. She didn't want Emma thinking that living with her grandmother was normal. I felt something breaking inside my chest, something that had been cracked for a while but was finally splitting clean through. When do you want me to leave? I thought maybe by the end of the month. That gives you time to find somewhere nice. 3 weeks. After 68 years of life, after raising her, after 5 years of helping with Emma, I had 3 weeks to disappear from their fresh start. That night, I sat on my narrow bed and looked around the room that had never quite felt like home, but had been all the home I had. My clothes hung in the small closet. My few photographs sat on the dresser David had made. Everything I owned in the world could fit in 3 boxes, maybe 4. I pulled out my lottery tickets from the drawer where I'd been keeping them. The special one with my numbers was there at the bottom of the stack, carefully folded. 03, 17, 1985, 22, 11, 45. Jessica's birthday, my wedding anniversary, the day David first held her. Tomorrow I would start looking for apartments I could afford on my Social Security check. Tomorrow I would begin the process of becoming invisible in my daughter's clean narrative. But tonight, I just sat with the weight of 38 years of weekly hope, wondering if prayers were supposed to hurt this much when they were answered. The apartment I found was in a complex called Sunset Manor, which sounded prettier than it looked. Beige walls, thin carpeting, and windows that faced a parking lot instead of a garden. But it was clean and safe, and the rent left me enough money for groceries and the small necessities of a quiet life. Jessica helped me move, which is to say she hired movers and supervised while I packed my belongings into boxes that looked even smaller than I'd expected. Emma cried when she realized Grandma Maggie wasn't just going on vacation, and I had to step outside for a moment to compose myself. "You'll visit all the time," Jessica told Emma, her voice bright with forced cheer. "And Grandma will love having her own place. Won't you, Mom?" I nodded because what else could I do? Emma was watching, and I wouldn't let her remember this day as traumatic. I wouldn't let my heartbreak become her burden. "I'll call you every day," I promised Emma, hugging her tight. "And you can come visit me whenever your mom says it's okay." Jessica's smile was perfectly polite and completely empty. Of course, once we get settled in the new house. The new house. She'd found one in Westchester, just as planned. 6 bedrooms, a pool, a circular driveway. She'd shown me the listing, her finger tracing over the photos like a caress. "It's everything I dreamed of when I was growing up," she'd said. "Emma will have her own bathroom. Can you imagine?" I could imagine. I could also remember Jessica at Emma's age, sharing a tiny bathroom with me in our 2-bedroom apartment, thinking it was perfectly normal and never complaining. My first week at Sunset Manor passed in a haze of unpacking and learning new routines. The complex was full of people like me, older, alone, making do with less than they'd once had. Mrs. Chen from 3 doors down had also been displaced by her son's good fortune. He got a promotion and moved to Portland, she explained over coffee in the community room, said the Pacific Northwest would be better for his family's future. We didn't talk about being abandoned. We talked about being transitioning to independence and enjoying our golden years. The euphemisms were kinder than the truth. I started volunteering at the local library, reading to children during story time. The librarian, a kind woman named Susan, welcomed me warmly. "We always need people who love books," she said. "Children can tell when someone really cares." The children reminded me of Emma. Eager faces, bright questions, small hands that reached out for connection. I threw myself into the work, learning new stories, practicing voices, creating little adventures that made them laugh and gasp with delight. It was good work, meaningful work. But it didn't fill the Emma-shaped hole in my heart. Jessica called occasionally, brief conversations full of updates about house hunting and Emma's adjustment to private school. "She's making new friends," Jessica would say, "really good kids from good families." I wanted to ask if Emma missed our bedtime stories, if she still liked to help cook pancakes on Sunday mornings, if she remembered the song we used to sing while braiding her hair. But Jessica's tone discouraged lingering, and I'd learned to read the subtle signals that meant our conversation was over. 3 months after I moved out, Jessica invited me to see the new house. Emma had been asking for me, she said, and they were settled enough now for visitors. The house was even more impressive in person than in the photos. Marble floors, soaring ceilings, a chandelier in the foyer that probably cost more than my rent for a year. Emma ran to greet me at the door, her enthusiasm unchanged despite the grandeur surrounding her. "Grandma Maggie, I have my own room and it's huge and there's a pool." She dragged me through the house, showing me everything with 8-year-old pride. Her bedroom was indeed huge, decorated in shades of pink and gold that looked like a princess fantasy. Jessica appeared in the doorway as Emma was showing me her walk-in closet. "It's beautiful," I told my daughter honestly. "You've built something wonderful here." "Thank you." Jessica's smile was warmer than it had been in months. "We're really happy." We. Always we, never including me in the circle of their happiness. I stayed for dinner, sitting at their enormous dining room table while Emma chattered about school and swimming lessons and the vacation they were planning to Europe. Jessica talked about her new friends, the charity board she'd joined, the interior decorator who was helping her achieve the perfect aesthetic. It was a lovely evening, perfectly pleasant. And by the time I drove back to Sunset Manor in my ancient Honda, I felt more alone than I had since David's funeral. That night, I sat in my small living room and allowed myself to feel the full weight of what had happened. My daughter had won the lottery and used it to erase me from her life. Not cruelly, not dramatically, but efficiently, cleanly, like editing an unwanted element from a photograph. I understood why she'd done it. I even, in my clearest moments, forgave her for it. Jessica had grown up poor, watching me struggle, watching me work multiple jobs and still barely make ends meet. In her mind, I represented a life she'd escaped from, a reminder of limitations she'd overcome. My presence in her new, wealthy life was a jarring note in the symphony of success she was composing, but understanding didn't make it hurt less. I pulled out my wallet and looked at my lottery tickets from that last week in Jessica's house. I'd been buying them out of habit even after moving to Sunset Manor, though my heart wasn't really in it anymore. The special ticket with my numbers was there, creased from folding and unfolding. 03, 17, 1985, 22, 11, 45. Jessica's birthday, my wedding anniversary, the day David first held her. I'd never checked if any of them had won anything. What was the point? Even if I won enough to cover my groceries for a month, it wouldn't change anything. It wouldn't bring Emma's laughter back to my daily life or restore my place in their family. But something made me reach for my laptop, a gift Jessica had given me 2 Christmases ago, so we can stay in touch. I navigated to the lottery website, my arthritic fingers clumsy on the keyboard. The winning numbers from that Tuesday, the day before Jessica announced her win, filled the screen. 03, 17 to 1985, 22 to 11:45. I stared at the numbers for a long time, certain I was making a mistake. But no matter how many times I looked, they were the same. My numbers. The numbers I'd played faithfully for 38 years. The ones that meant everything to me because they represented the people I loved most. My hands were shaking as I reached for my wallet, pulling out the ticket with careful fingers. There they were, printed in black ink on white paper, purchased at Murphy's Corner store on that Tuesday afternoon, when I'd felt like something was changing. The jackpot amount was listed at the bottom of the website, $10 million. I sat back in my chair, the ticket flutter in my trembling hands, and for the first time in months, I started to laugh. Not bitter laughter, not ironic laughter. but the kind of deep, surprised laughter that comes when the universe reveals its sense of humor. Jessica had won $10 million with random numbers she didn't even remember. I had won $10 million with numbers that meant everything to me, and tomorrow I would have to decide what that meant for all of us. I spent 3 days staring at that ticket, 3 days turning it over in my hands, checking and rechecking the numbers on the lottery website, convinced I was losing my mind. But the numbers never changed. 03, 17, 1985, 22, 11, 45, my numbers. The numbers that had meant everything to me for 38 years. $10 million. The same amount Jessica had won with her random numbers she didn't even remember. On the 4th day, I walked to Murphy's Corner store, the same route I'd taken every Tuesday for 2 decades. The young cashier looked up when I entered, surprised to see me outside my usual schedule. "Hey, Mrs. Thompson, you okay? You look kind of, I don't know, different." I approached the counter with my ticket, my heart pounding so hard I was sure she could hear it. Could you check this for me? I think there might be a mistake." She took the ticket and scanned it with the lottery machine. The machine made a series of beeps, longer and more insistent than usual. Her eyes widened as she looked at the display. Wow. Mrs. Thompson, you need to call the lottery office right now. It's real? Real as it gets. $10 million real. She handed the ticket back to me with something approaching reverence. "When did you buy this?" 3 weeks ago, the Tuesday before. I paused, not sure how to explain the timing. "Before my daughter won." The cashier's eyebrows shot up. "Your daughter won too? What are the odds of that?" What indeed were the odds? I thanked her and walked home slowly, my mind spinning with implications I wasn't ready to face. Back in my small apartment, I sat at my kitchen table and really looked at the situation for the first time. Jessica had claimed her winnings immediately, been on the news, started spending money she believed was hers. She'd bought the mansion, quit her job, enrolled Emma in private school. She'd built her entire new life on $10 million that legally belonged to me. But more than that, she'd used that money to erase me from her life, to justify pushing me out, to fund a fresh start that didn't include the woman who'd raised her. For the first time since David's death, I felt something other than sadness or resignation. I felt powerful. Not angry, exactly, but aware of my own agency in a way I'd forgotten was possible. The next morning, I called in sick to the library and took the bus to the lottery office in downtown Albany. The building was smaller than I'd expected, just a government office with fluorescent lighting and worn carpet. But the woman behind the claims desk treated my ticket like it was made of gold. "Mrs. Thompson, this is quite a situation," she said after running through the verification process. "You purchased this ticket on March 15th? "Yes. At Murphy's Corner store on Elm Street, I've been buying the same numbers every Tuesday for 38 years. She checked her computer screen. "I see here that someone else claimed a jackpot for the same drawing period, same prize amount. That's highly unusual." That was my daughter, Jessica Thompson Martinez. The woman's expression grew carefully neutral. "I see. And you're just claiming now because..." How could I explain? Because I was living in my daughter's back room like a shameful secret? Because I'd been too heartbroken to check my tickets after she threw me out? Because I'd given up on the idea that good things could happen to me? "I had some personal matters to sort through," I said finally. The lottery official nodded as if this made perfect sense. "Well, Mrs. Thompson, I need to inform you that there's going to be an investigation. 2 winning tickets for the same drawing, same amounts, purchased in the same small town. That raises flags. We'll need to verify everything before any payouts can continue." My stomach dropped. What does that mean for my daughter? Any further disbursements from her claim will be frozen until we sort this out. She's already received the initial lump sum payment, but that's it until we resolve this. I thought about Jessica's mansion, her new lifestyle, Emma's expensive private school. How much of that initial payment had she already spent? How long will the investigation take? Could be weeks, could be months. We'll need documentation from the store, security footage if it still exists, bank records showing who purchased what ticket, when. She paused, looking at me with something like sympathy. This is going to be complicated, Mrs. Thompson. You might want to get a lawyer. A lawyer? I'd never needed a lawyer in my entire life. The only legal document I'd ever signed was my marriage certificate and David's will. But as I rode the bus back to Sunset Manor, I realized I was going to need help navigating this new world I'd stumbled into. Not just legal help, but emotional support. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about family, about truth, about 38 years of faith finally being rewarded in the most complicated possible way. I called the only person I could think of who might understand. Mrs. Chen? It's Margaret from down the hall. I was wondering if you had a minute to talk. An hour later, Mrs. Chen sat in my living room with a cup of tea, listening to the whole story with the patience of someone who'd survived her own family complications. So, your daughter took credit for your winning ticket, she said when I finished. Not intentionally. She genuinely won with different numbers, but the same amount, the same day. I shook my head. It's impossible, but it happened. Mrs. Chen was quiet for a long moment. Margaret, can I ask you something? What do you want from this? The question caught me off guard. What did I want? For months, I'd been focused on what had been taken from me, my place in Jessica's life, my relationship with Emma, my sense of belonging. But what did I actually want now? I want Emma to know that her grandmother isn't someone to be ashamed of, I said finally. I want Jessica to understand that love isn't something you discard when you don't need it anymore. And I paused, surprised by the clarity that was emerging. I want to build something good with this money, something that would make David proud, something that helps people instead of just buying things. Mrs. Chen smiled. Then you don't want revenge. You want justice. There's a difference. She was right. I didn't want to destroy Jessica or take away Emma's security. I wanted to reclaim my own worth, to show that a 68-year-old woman could still matter, could still contribute something meaningful to the world. Over the next few weeks, while the lottery investigation crawled forward, I began to envision a different kind of life. Not the quiet resignation I'd been settling for, but something active and purposeful. I started researching literacy programs, senior centers that needed funding, scholarships for kids like Emma who deserved opportunities, but whose families couldn't afford them. I also started therapy. Dr. Patricia Williams was recommended by the community center, a woman in her 50s who specialized in late-life transitions. I'd never talked to a therapist before. In my generation, you didn't pay strangers to listen to your problems, but I was learning that maybe my generation had gotten some things wrong. Tell me about your relationship with your daughter before the lottery, Dr. Williams said during our third session. I thought about it carefully. I think I made myself too small. After David died, after I moved in with Jessica, I tried so hard not to be a burden that I became invisible. I let her treat me like hired help because I was grateful she didn't abandon me completely. And now I'm wondering if I taught her that love was something you earned by diminishing yourself, that the only way to deserve a place in someone's life was to need as little as possible. Dr. Williams nodded. What would it look like to need something, to want something, to take up space? Taking up space. The phrase echoed in my mind as I left that session. When was the last time I'd taken up space? When was the last time I'd asserted my own needs, my own wants, my own right to exist fully in the world? That night, I called Emma. Jessica had given me her new phone number reluctantly, with careful instructions about when it was appropriate to call. But it was 7 p.m. on a Wednesday, well within the approved window, and I needed to hear my granddaughter's voice. Grandma Maggie! Emma's excitement traveled through the phone like sunshine. I missed you so much. I missed you too, sweetheart. How's the new school? It's okay. The kids are nice, but they're different. They talk about going to Paris for vacation and getting horses for their birthdays. I told them about you and how you taught me to make pancakes, but they thought that was weird. My heart ached. Weird how? They said their grandmothers don't cook. They have people who do that. Emma's voice dropped to a whisper. I like your pancakes better than the ones our cook makes. You have a cook now, I thought, but didn't say. Instead, I asked, would you like to come visit me this weekend? I could teach you how to make French toast, too. Really? Could I? The excitement in her voice was infectious. I'll ask Mom. Jessica's voice came on the line a moment later, carefully pleasant. Hi, Mom. How are you? I'm well. I was hoping Emma could visit this Saturday. Just for the day. There was a pause. This Saturday isn't great. We have plans. What about next Saturday? Well, Emma's got riding lessons now on Saturdays, and then there's usually something social. I felt the old familiar shrinking sensation, the instinct to apologize for asking, to make myself smaller. But Dr. Williams' voice echoed in my mind. What would it look like to take up space? Jessica, I said quietly, I'd like to see my granddaughter. We can work around the riding lessons or I can pick her up after. But I'm not going to disappear from her life just because it's inconvenient for your schedule. Another pause, longer this time. Mom, I don't think you understand how different things are now. Emma's in a different world with different expectations. I'm trying to help her fit in, and I'm trying to remain her grandmother. The words hung in the air between us. When Jessica spoke again, her voice was sharper. Fine, next Saturday afternoon, but just for a few hours. After we hung up, I sat in my living room feeling something I hadn't felt in years, proud of myself. I'd asked for what I wanted and hadn't backed down when it wasn't immediately granted. It was a small victory, but it felt enormous. The call from Jessica's lawyer came on a Thursday morning in late April. I was getting ready for story time at the library when my phone rang. Mrs. Thompson, this is Richard Hartwell from Hartwell and Associates. I represent your daughter, Jessica Thompson Martinez, in some legal matters. I believe you know what this is regarding. My mouth went dry. The lottery investigation. Yes. Mrs. Thompson, I'm going to be direct with you. This investigation is causing significant problems for my client. She's made financial commitments based on her lottery winnings, and the freeze on additional funds is putting her in a very difficult position. I thought about the mansion, the private school tuition, the lifestyle Jessica had already started living. I understand that must be stressful for her. We'd like to propose a settlement, a way to resolve this matter quickly and quietly, without dragging the family through a prolonged legal battle. What kind of settlement? My client is prepared to acknowledge that there may have been some confusion about the ticket purchases. She's willing to share the winnings equally. $5 million for her, $5 million for you. Everyone walks away whole. $5 million. More money than I'd ever dreamed of having. Enough to live comfortably for the rest of my life, to help Emma with college, to fund all the charitable projects I'd been imagining. But it was also Jessica's way of buying me off, of making the problem go away without ever acknowledging what she'd done, how she'd treated me, what she'd been willing to sacrifice to maintain her perfect narrative. I need some time to think about it, I said. Of course. But Mrs. Thompson, I should mention that if this goes to court, it could get unpleasant. These family disputes often do. Things get said that can't be unsaid. Relationships get damaged beyond repair. The threat was polite but clear. But accept the settlement or lose Jessica and Emma forever. After I hung up, I called my own lawyer, a recommendation from Dr. Williams. Patricia Santos was a family law attorney who specialized in elder issues, and she'd been following my case with growing interest. "What's your gut reaction to the settlement offer?" she asked after I explained the call. That it's not about the money. It's about Jessica not wanting to face the truth of what happened. Which is? I thought about it for a moment. that she was so eager to be rid of me that she didn't care whether her windfall was legitimate, that she threw me away based on money she thought was hers, and now she has to live with that choice. Patricia was quiet for a moment. Margaret, I've looked at all the documentation. Your ticket was purchased with your bank card, using numbers you've been playing for decades, bought at a store where you're a regular customer. Their security footage shows you making the purchase. This isn't legally complicated, but family is always complicated. If you push this, you're essentially forcing Jessica to admit that she rejected her mother based on false premises. Some people can't come back from that kind of revelation about themselves. And if I don't push it, then you're teaching your granddaughter that love is conditional, that family can be discarded when it's convenient, and that the truth matters less than keeping the peace. That evening, I walked around the small pond behind Sunset Manor, thinking about choices and consequences. Other residents nodded as I passed. Mrs. Patterson with her ancient poodle, Mr. Rodriguez feeding the ducks, the Martinez couple holding hands on their usual bench. These were people who'd been pushed to the margins of their families' lives, set aside when they became inconvenient or embarrassing. But they'd found ways to build meaning in smaller spaces, to create community where none had existed before. I could accept Jessica's settlement and join them fully in this peaceful exile. $5 million would buy a lot of comfort, a lot of security. I could fund my literacy programs, help other seniors live well. But Emma would grow up thinking her grandmother had simply faded away when she was no longer needed. She'd learn that family was something you could discard when your circumstances changed, that love was a luxury you could afford to lose. By the time I'd circled the pond 3 times, I knew what I had to do. I called Patricia Santos. I'm not taking the settlement. Are you sure? This could get very messy. I'm sure. But I want to do this right. I don't want to destroy Jessica or take away Emma's security. I just want the truth to matter. What does that look like to you? I took a deep breath. I want my $10 million. All of it. It's legally mine, but I want to use it to set up a trust fund for Emma's education and future. I want to establish a foundation that helps seniors who've been abandoned by their families. And I want Jessica to acknowledge what she did. That last part might be the hardest. Then we'll see what she chooses to do with the truth. The legal battle that followed wasn't the dramatic courtroom confrontation I'd imagined from TV shows. It was mostly paperwork and depositions, meetings in conference rooms with lawyers who spoke in careful legal language about documented evidence and chronological proof of purchase. But the emotional battle was fierce. Jessica stopped taking my calls. She kept Emma away from me completely, claiming I was causing too much family stress for a child to be exposed to. She told people I was having some kind of mental breakdown, that grief over David's death had made me confused about what was mine and what was hers. The investigation concluded in my favor after 6 weeks. The evidence was overwhelming. Bank records, store security footage, witness testimony from the cashier who'd sold me the same numbers every Tuesday for 20 years. Jessica's lawyer called with a new offer. She'd acknowledge my claim in exchange for a confidentiality agreement. No public statements, no media interviews, no mention of the family dispute that had led to the investigation. I declined. The lottery office issued a statement correcting the record. Margaret Thompson had won the March 15th jackpot with ticket number 47792451133, purchased with her bank card at Murphy's Corner Store. Jessica Thompson Martinez's winning ticket was for a different drawing entirely, March 16th with different numbers, though coincidentally the same prize amount. 2 jackpot winners in the same family on consecutive days. The media called it a miracle. I called it justice. The phone rang at 6 a.m. on the day my story hit the local news. I'd given one interview to the same Channel 7 reporter who'd featured Jessica months earlier. I'd been careful to focus on the facts, on my plans for the money, on the literacy programs I wanted to fund. but I'd also been honest about why I'd waited so long to claim my ticket, about living in my daughter's house and then being asked to leave when her circumstances changed. "Hello?" I answered, though I knew who it would be. "How could you?" Jessica's voice was tight with fury. "How could you humiliate us like this?" "I told the truth, Jessica. That's all I did. You made us look like monsters. Do you know what Emma's friends are saying? What their parents are thinking?" I felt a familiar stab of pain at the mention of Emma, but I kept my voice steady. "What are they thinking?" "That I threw my mother out for money. That I'm some kind of heartless person who abandons family. Aren't you?" The words came out before I could stop them. The silence that followed was deafening. When Jessica spoke again, her voice was different, smaller. "I never meant... I thought I was doing the right thing. For Emma, I thought she needed to see what success looked like." "And what does success look like, Jessica?" "I don't know anymore." Her voice cracked. "I don't know anything anymore." For a moment, I heard my little girl again, the one who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms, who brought me drawings from school, who told me she wanted to be just like me when she grew up. "Where's Emma?" I asked gently. "At school. She's been asking about you, about why you're on the news and why we don't see you anymore." "What do you tell her?" "That it's complicated. That sometimes adults have disagreements that are hard to explain." I thought about Dr. Williams, about taking up space, about the difference between justice and revenge. "Jessica, would you like to bring Emma to see me this afternoon? No lawyers, no negotiations, just us." Another long pause. "I don't know if I can face you." "You don't have to face me. You just have to show up. For Emma." "She misses you so much, Mom. She asks about your pancakes, about the stories you used to read. She wants to know when she can come visit your new apartment." My heart broke and healed at the same time. "Then bring her. We'll figure out the rest as we go." They came at 3 p.m. Emma burst through my door like a small hurricane, all arms and legs and excited chatter about school and her new riding lessons and the books she was reading. Jessica hung back by the door, looking uncertain and younger than I'd seen her in years. "Come in," I said. "Both of you." We made pancakes together, Emma standing on a kitchen chair to flip them while Jessica watched from the small dining table. The conversation was careful at first, full of polite questions about Emma's school and my volunteer work at the library. But gradually the old rhythms returned. Emma demanded the story about the princess who befriended a dragon, complete with voices and sound effects. Jessica found herself laughing at my terrible dragon impression, the same way she had as a child. When Emma was distracted by a puzzle I'd bought for her, Jessica and I finally talked. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "Not about the money, though I'm sorry about that too, but about making you feel like you didn't matter." "Why did you do it?" Jessica was quiet for a long time, watching Emma work on her puzzle. "Do you remember when I was 8 and Tommy Morrison called me poor trash at school?" I remembered. Jessica had come home crying, asking why we couldn't have nice things like the other kids. "You worked so hard, Mom. 3 jobs and we still had food stamps. I used to lie about where we lived, about why my clothes came from thrift stores. I promised myself that when I grew up, I'd never be poor again. I'd never have anyone look down on me. And I represented all of that to you. Not intentionally, but when the money came, when I had the chance to be someone different, I thought maybe if Emma only knew the successful version of me, she'd never have to feel ashamed the way I did." I reached across the table and took her hand. "Sweetheart, I was never ashamed of our life. Were we poor? Yes, but we had love. We had each other. We had enough. I know that now, or I'm starting to." Tears were running down Jessica's cheeks. I lost sight of what mattered. I almost lost the most important people in my life for money I didn't even earn. Emma looked up from her puzzle. "Mommy, why are you crying?" "Because I love you," Jessica said. "And because I love Grandma Maggie, and I forgot how to show it for a while. Emma nodded solemnly, as if this made perfect sense to her 8-year-old understanding of the world. Are you going to remember now? I'm going to try my very best. That evening, after Emma had fallen asleep on my couch during a movie and Jessica had carried her to the car, my daughter turned to me one last time. What happens now, Mom? I thought about the $10 million, about the foundation I was planning, about the trust fund I'd set up for Emma. I thought about the house Jessica couldn't afford without the lottery money she'd thought was hers, about the choices we all had to live with. Now we figure out how to be a family again, I said. It won't look like it did before, but maybe that's okay. Maybe it can be better. Jessica hugged me then, really hugged me, for the first time in years. I missed you, Mom. I missed you too. After they left, I sat in my quiet apartment and looked around at the life I'd built in this small space. It wasn't the life I'd planned, but it was mine. I'd found my voice here, my strength, my sense of purpose. Tomorrow I would start working with lawyers and financial advisors to set up the Margaret Thompson Foundation for senior support. Emma's education fund was already established, ensuring she'd never lack opportunities no matter what happened with Jessica's finances. And next weekend, Emma would come for a sleepover, like we'd planned before everything changed. We'd make pancakes and read stories and remember that the best things in life couldn't be bought or sold. They could only be shared. I pulled out my phone and deleted the lottery app I'd downloaded during those dark weeks of wondering if I'd imagined the whole thing. I wouldn't be buying any more tickets. After 38 years of hoping for luck to change my life, I'd finally learned that I had the power to change it myself. Outside my window, the parking lot of Sunset Manor looked different than it had when I first arrived. Not like a place where people came to fade away, but like a community where they came to begin again. I was 68 years old and I was just getting started.